The situation for Putin is pretty bleak right now. This is not what he expected. This is a nightmare scenario. He expected a 3-day war, and what he got was 3.5 years later, the U.S. now coming in with, he thought Trump perhaps would be an ally, but Trump has figured out maybe this isn't the best way, what he's been doing to bring Putin to the table. And so now billions are flooding into Ukraine. And that's not all. The momentum on the battlefield has slowed. Now, it's not that it's not hard for the Ukrainians. It really is, and we need to talk about that. But it's also hard for the Russians. Momentum has slammed into a brick wall. They can't overcome Ukrainians. And when you look at the battlefield and you look at what's happened politically and the momentum with Trump pivoting, man, the reality has to be sinking in for Russia. So how did we get here? We're going to look at this in this video. So first, you have to be sleeping under a rock to not know what the big announcement was yesterday. Trump announced that there's going to be a $10 billion arms deal where he's selling through NATO American weapons. It's not American giving, but America selling to other European countries who are then passing those weapons along to Ukraine. Now, I talked about this at length with Johnny Pierce and Greg Terry yesterday as the news broke. So you can go back to that live and you'll see everything that you need to see. Now, here's the Institute for the Study of War. Trump is acting upon the reality that successful U.S. efforts to bring Russian President Vladimir Putin to the negotiating table require that economic instruments be coupled with Western military support to allow Ukraine to increase pressure on Russia on the battlefield. That's what's just changed. This is a new thing for Vladimir Putin to encounter Trump 2.0 doing this. Trump asked Zelensky, listen to this. You didn't hear this yesterday, I'm pretty sure. Trump asked Zelensky why he didn't hit Moscow. Quote, we can if you give us the weapons, unquote, Zelensky said. Trump asked Ukraine said Ukraine needed to put more pressure on Putin, not just Moscow, but St. Petersburg too. Like, why aren't you hitting these places? Yeah, that's what Trump's asking. Trump and the First Lady had a very interesting conversation. I talked about this yesterday. Trump says, I got home and I tell the First Lady I spoke to Vladimir today. We had a wonderful conversation. Melania says, oh, really? Another Ukrainian city was just hit. So she's been the superstar here that has been in Ukraine's corner saying, hey, what are you doing? And yeah, so that's where we are. Anton Gurashenko posted this. Who's laughing now? Propagandists. They were mocking Melania at the inauguration for whatever her outfit was, her fashion choices. Okay. Now, this is Mitch McConnell. He's the former leader in the Senate. He stepped down. I mean, he's just older, and John Thune is now there. McConnell, on continuing U.S. lethal assistance to Ukraine, said this. The president will need to reject calls from the isolationists and restrainers within his administration to limit deliveries to Ukraine to defensive weapons. And he should disregard those at the Department of Defense who invoke munition shortages to block aid. This is right out of what he had to say here. I mean, this is straight from his letter. Okay. Meanwhile, Germany's stepping up, and in a big way. Like, it's really like, it doesn't erase the past, but they can overcome the past. And this is what Germany is now like. Yes, we were that. This is now who we are. Germany's defense minister, Boris Pistorius, after talks with the U.S. Secretary of Defense, confirmed that Germany has offered to buy 2 U.S. Patriot units to supply them to Ukraine. The agreement is not yet finalized, and we're talking about 3 of these 17 launchers or 3 units, and that's going in with like Norway and maybe some other Europeans. Okay, the agreement is not yet finalized. Talks would continue at the working level to finalize details, including the number of launchers, the missiles that might be included in the agreement. With a deal in place, the first Patriot unit could be sent to Ukraine within months. Okay, so it's going to take a while to get there. So it's not like overnight, but they're going to try to get things to the battlefield as quickly as possible, other reports have said. Germany will strike back. Pistorius said Bundeswehr is ready to kill Russian soldiers in case of aggression. Bundeswehr, I think is how I pronounce it. Now, German Defense Minister Pistorius told the Financial Times German soldiers will be ready to kill Russian soldiers if Russia attacks a NATO country. Like that's a huge change of tone as well. For the look, The Germans have been forced into a mold of pacifist after World War II, which was probably appropriate, and they're rising back up to feel their strength again in a positive way. It's about making it clear we want to live in peace with you, but don't think that we are weak or unable to defend ourselves. Pistorius is one of Europe's strongest advocates for strengthening defense. And here's German Major General Christian Freudling in Kyiv, working on recently signed German-Ukrainian offensive strike production agreements. Ukraine and Germany will collaborate on the manufacture of hundreds of long-range strike drones supported by German financing. So again, it's like one thing after another, both the U.S. statement and what the Germans are doing. And here's the ambassador to NATO. A slow drip of weapons to Ukraine is ending. U.S. Ambassador to NATO Matt Whitaker warns Putin, if you don't want war, we will. If you want war, we will arm Ukraine. The United States will prioritize domestic weapons production for Ukraine. This is on Fox News, and Fox News, like, if you don't watch Fox News, you wouldn't know. But over the last week and a half, the coverage of Ukraine has gone up significantly. I've been surprised by that. Okay. Russian overnight attacks injure 5 people, including a 14-year-old girl. A 14-year-old girl was hospitalized with glass fragment wounds after Russian forces launched 3 missile strikes on Sumy Oblast on 15 July, hitting a hospital, sparking a fire. This is what the Russians do every night. Now, their success at shooting these drones and missiles down is getting better. Russian CEO of United Aircraft Corporation reveals that Ukrainian interceptor UAVs have already downed over 500 Grand 2, that's Shahed, drones. It was decided to build a clear sky over Ukraine with the help of interceptor drones, and it seems like it's starting to work. Okay, Ukrainian drone strike. Now, what are the Ukrainians doing back to the Russians? Ukrainian drone strike in Voronezh. This morning, Russia's largest lithium-ion battery manufacturer, Energia, in Leipzig region, was also struck twice in the past 24 hours. While Russia is deliberately targeting rescuers in Kherson with drones as they arrive to deal with a fire, they're going after firefighters with drones, which is just, I mean, this is just sick. About 16 people were injured in that Voronezh attack after a downed drone crashed with damage to apartments and houses in multiple areas. Voronezh Oblast governor says that the air defense forces downed 12 drones over the city and 3 districts. But downing them is kind of a tricky thing. Here's a young Russian narrator who's using every curse word in the book. I'm not putting the sound on, to describe the scene of a Russian helicopter freely firing into a residential area, attempting to shoot down a Ukrainian drone. So they're just, don't worry about the people on the ground. That's where they are. Okay, let's look at the battlefield. 1,230 Russians off the battlefield, second highest since May. 3 tanks, 6 armored fighting vehicles, 52 artillery systems, 122 vehicles and fuel tanks. Now, it's not like it's not going the other way. Ukrainians are feeling the pinch as well. In fact, here's Andrew Perpetua, his calculated losses for yesterday. It's about 1.5 Ukrainian losses for every 1 Russian loss. That's not good. That's bad. But, I mean, this is what it is. We're seeing the reality here. We're past 100,000 videos analyzed in the war, says Andrew Perpetua. So many videos. You assume 90 seconds long each. That's 104 days worth of footage analyzed by my team. Over 300,000 logged events. That's tough. I don't want his job. I'm glad he does it. I wouldn't want it. Okay, in the cross direction, Russian invaders conducted 37 assaults. That's way low given the second highest number of casualties since May, right? Okay, fewer engagements. This is Ragnar Gudmundsson's dashboard. Fewer engagements, but casualties are well above the 7-day average. That's what's happening on the battlefield right now. Here's a Russian platoon commander. Chris Owicki posted this. Russian platoon commander recounts on video how he's walking 28 kilometers between the front line and rear positions due to Ukrainian drones, suppressing vehicle movements. So the drones don't allow them to get to and fro easily, right? Both sides do this. He says his unit has lost 37 out of 40 men in only 2 weeks of assault operations. That's pretty terrible. Like, that's what's happening on the front lines. He says, I went to the rear again. I blank. Yes, I'm a platoon commander. I'm going because I don't have any fighters. We have 2 guys at the very front pulling out 200s, that's dead bodies. Now I have to go to the rear and the command post. He went to the front to deliver essential supplies, but I was walking back on my own because, or say he was walking back on his own because he was only one of 3 men out of 40 who were left in his unit after a series of disastrous assaults against Ukrainian positions. Now, my son and I were talking about this morning, and he made a really interesting observation. He said, like, the problem with the Russians, it seems, is that they have too many men. Now, I get it as, focused on Ukraine. I get that. But what he was saying was this. It's not too many that they just have 700,000. It's too many that they feel like they can just expend them because they have so many. And that's exactly describing what's going on. Here's a clearing operation in Turretsk, straight from the front line. Infantry from the special forces. Russians were dug in but refused to surrender, so grenades settled the issue. So this guy's about to toss a grenade into that little hole where some Russians are. By the way, this is in Turretsk. That's where the drones from our most recent fundraiser are going, to Turretsk. Captured Russian infantry wearing heat-insulating anti-drone ponchos. So it sounds like a good idea, but if you look at a video of this kind of thing, it's really not working out so hot. Let's look at this. Like, if you're a drone operator, you could spot those guys. And those heat-insulating ponchos are about to get a lot hotter when they figure out, okay, that's where those 3 guys, and they're going to drop some munitions on them. And I'll pause before the munitions actually get to them. Yep, there goes the munitions, and there will go the guys in just a little bit. Russian soldier, now I can't verify this, with cancer and 2 broken legs. Can't verify the cancer, but the guy's clearly in a wheelchair, was sent to the front lines in Ukraine to fight in a wheelchair, even though his chronic condition meant that he was ineligible to serve. They're sending people with chronic conditions to serve in them. This doesn't make sense unless you're just in really bad shape and you're failing and you really have to do something in order to get anybody up to the front. After his cancer was deemed terminal, he was sent home to die. But this is the guy on the front lines in a wheelchair and trying to crawl forward. Like, what on earth? Okay, Ukraine, we're not waiting for the future. We're creating it. They absolutely are. Ground robotic systems are in service with the 40th Coastal Defense Brigade. It's a new era of warfare where speed, mobility, and innovation determine the outcome of battle. Like, think about that. Think about just ground drones with machine guns on them. It's game changing. Okay. NATO warns that Russia, in some other news, NATO warns Russia that it will strike Kaliningrad if the GPS jamming radars there cause an aviation crash. They've been doing this for I don't know how long, jamming radar over Kaliningrad. And like the rest of Europe's like, well, what are we doing here? Russia's been jamming NATO airspace since 2022. And NATO is just finally getting around to going, they're just starting to feel tough enough to be able to make that kind of claim. Meanwhile, employees in Moscow City are being urgently moved to remote work due to the threat of drone attacks. VTB Bank was the first to announce a switch to remote work. The bank's management warned staff of a possible attack within the next 2 weeks and instructed them to avoid the office located in Moscow City complex. Other companies with offices in Moscow City are likely to follow suit. They're nervous, and there's a reason that they're nervous. And by the way, while we're talking about that sort of thing, in my 3 big stories tonight, I'll spend a lot of time talking about the reaction to Trump's deal and the sanctions that could be coming and the weapons that will be coming and that sort of thing. Okay. Meanwhile, there's a shortage of women in Russia. So we're talking about the birth rates being way low. And Anton Gurchenko said there's a shortage. Putin pointed out that there's a shortage of women in Russia, and it looks like he's solving the problem by drastically decreasing the number of men in Russia through sending them to war. Now, that's not what he's actually suggesting. He's talking about bigger families and that sort of thing. But he's doing that not because he's pro-life in any meaningful sense, but because he wants another generation of soldiers in 20 years. Finally, it's been much worse for Russia this year than it has been for Ukraine. Here's General Ben Hodges
I would say
talking
it's
about
been
it.
a much harder year for Russia than it has been for Ukraine. Despite all the advantages, Russia has failed to make any significant progress in Ukraine. They've lost hundreds of thousands of casualties for precious little gain on the ground. Their economy is in big trouble, and there are increasing reports coming from Russian military bloggers complaining about morale, about corruption, about all the things. So you do have, and maybe this is me because I want to believe this, but I see so much more noise about things going badly inside Russia.
It's not just me saying it. I mean, that's the headline, but there is more about things going badly inside Russia. Okay. On this day in 2014, RT actually apologized for airing a fabricated story about a child being crucified in Ukraine to provide its justification for our invasion, says Darth Putin, that has killed hundreds of thousands. This is what Chomsky would call manufactured consent. Not that this cult gave any consideration when we do it. Okay, so yeah, remember that story? Well, they actually, kudos to them for actually apologizing, but they should never have run that to begin with. This was total propaganda. Last couple things. Today, Ukraine celebrates Statehood Day. Established in 2021, that was before the war, this day honors Ukraine's millennium-long journey from Kievan Rus and Prince Volodymyr's baptism in 988 to today's independence. Even in wartime, we affirm Ukraine is not an invented state. We have deep roots, our own identity, and an unbreakable spirit. Here's Zelensky talking about the same thing. Ukrainians were here. Ukrainians are here. Ukrainians will be here. And on this land, life always triumphs. Our values prevail, and so does our spirit. Happy Statehood Day, fellow citizens. Happy day of the baptism of Rus Ukraine. Glory to Ukraine. Now, my friends, I'm on Spotify, and there's a new look on Spotify. I've been on Spotify for a long time. If you want to listen to this on audio, on a podcast, I just telling you about this because I put different images up and I wanted you to be aware of that. You can find me now on Apple Podcasts, on YouTube, Podbean, Spotify, Amazon Music, iHeartRadio, Player FM, Podchaser, Boomplay, Listen Notes. If there is a platform for podcasting, hopefully I'm there. Go to wherever you listen to podcasts and just type in Professor Gerdes Explains. You should be able to find me. Thank you for your time. Thank you for the likes, the shares, and the subscribes. And thank you for being the kind of person that cares about Ukraine.